Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're the hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every day, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can view all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues that affect you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
There we go.
Okay, good evening. We are beginning the Tree Advisory Committee meeting. This is October 10th, 2024, and the time is 4:01. First item on our agenda is approving the minutes from our last meeting, which was September 12th. Are there any recommendations for edits?
I will fix your name.
And her name.
And I will fix both your names, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Just minor spelling, okay.
So I move approval.
I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, the minutes from the September 12th meeting have been approved. Okay, tonight's agenda, is there any, public appearances? There, I don't see anybody here tonight. So, the agenda review, any changes recommended or ordered? Okay. Make a motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
So, I'll move that we approve the agenda.
All second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Our first agenda item is the Urban Tree Alliance, the IRA granted funded project, and we have a guest tonight.
Do you mind if I introduce it?
Please do.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much for coming to the meeting today, everyone. We have a very special guest. Jeremy Kane is the Executive Director of the Urban Tree Alliance, and I think you guys are aware, because I've been talking about it for years, that the federal government, when they passed the Inflation Reduction Act, they had a record amount of money in that piece of legislation for urban forestry. And here in Fitchburg, we were lucky enough that we have 4 neighborhoods that do qualify for that funding, and we tried to write a grant ourselves and it wasn't successful, but Jeremy was kind enough to also write a grant that included our 4 neighborhoods, and so the Urban Tree Alliance grant was funded. So even though, so basically we have another opportunity to get those projects done in the city of Fitchburg, which we're very excited about. So Jeremy was nice enough to come today to talk to this group to kind of start outlining how we can collaborate and do some urban forestry projects in our, basically what we call our healthy neighborhoods. And just for reference, the area is North Fish Hatchery Road toward the Beltline. It's Belmar, which you might know that's where the Boys and Girls Club is, and where we have a Habitat for Humanity development. It's also the area called Maple Lawn Heights, which is sort of, it's Post Road and Pike Drive, and sort of where there's a Starbucks up there and there's a bank and things of that nature. It's kind of tucked, it's on the west side of Fish Hatchery Road, and then Southdale is the other neighborhood. So that's just to kind of give you a little bit of geographic reference. And there's a lot of different ways we can work together. I did forward you the time frame and the general grant that did get funded through the Urban Tree Alliance, as well as some different things that we could do to work together. So I guess with that introduction, I'd like to turn it over to Jeremy, who was nice enough to come and kind of give us a little bit more detail and just sort of outline the project and sort of opportunities for collaboration.
Great, thanks. So, yep, I'm Jeremy. I work with the Urban Tree Alliance, as Anna mentioned. I also work with a private company, Urban Tree Management. That's the shirt I'm wearing today. Sometimes I wear a different shirt. It's the Urban Tree Alliance. And I work as an arborist in that scenario, doing tree pruning and removals and things. I also work at Madison College in the arboriculture program there. So it's all tree related, and it's a lot of overlapping interests and things. But the Urban Tree Alliance has been existing for about 12 years, and we started working with in Fitchburg with Ed Bartel as our predecessor a while back. Not in a very extensive way, but we have been kind of working in Fitchburg intermittently during that time period. And so as a not-for-profit, we've run a variety of programs. Initially, we were really neighborhood-based, focused on private property, and so we ran a program called the Madison Canopy Project, which actually included a bit of Fitchburg out towards Jamestown at that time. And the idea there was to reach out to private property owners who lived in these neighborhoods that we identified as having relatively low canopy and offering trees directly to them. And so that was a process where people would request trees, we'd go out, look at properties, make recommendations based on the trees we had, and then follow up and plant trees or provide the trees depending on the situation. So that was a model that we operated under for probably 6 or 7 years, and worked out pretty well. We kind of just sort of hit a plateau with funding and kind of energy with that project. But it's a model that I'll return to here as I discuss like what we're doing now. And then from that, we evolved into a little bit different way of operating, where we started working with more larger organizations, and starting initially with the Madison School District, but then also school districts around Madison, like Middleton, Wanakee, Stoughton, the 5 or 6 that kind of touch Madison. And in those scenarios, we did a tree assessment. It was at that point, it was really focused on ash trees, so we knew that was a big issue. So we provided some like management planning services, and then followed up again, used that for tree planting. So we've been working with Wanakee, but particularly Madison, for tree planting for the last 5 or 6 years. And so that was kind of our entrance to like, so who are some of these other organizations out there that manage land, don't have arborists on staff, don't have a budget for tree-related issues, which is a lot of the school districts. And so from them, we started working with a lot of multifamily housing providers, mostly the City of Madison, the Community Development Authority, but also some other not-for-profit agencies like Commonwealth Development. A little bit Habitat for Humanity here and there, not in a really concerted way. And also Dane County Housing Authority. There's a real similar process where we're doing tree assessments and then using those, one, to provide information to the property managers about the trees they had, but then 2, that would kind of guide us in our planting strategy. So with those experiences, and then also with what Anna mentioned, became apparent a couple of years ago that there'd be this kind of faucet turned on with additional money available. We kind of say, well, what's the next step here? Like, well, as an organization, how can we build on these and also tailor this to the funding that's going to be available? So what we've put together is what we're calling the Neighborhood Forest Project. It's still very neighborhood-based, but it includes the neighborhoods that Anna just mentioned, but it also includes a big swath of South Madison, basically areas that are adjacent to the ones that just got described. So like Park Street, then up, you keep going up Fitch Hatchery, and then parts of Monona to the east even. So basically go along the Beltline and then take like a mile or 2 on each side, and then that's kind of where we're working. So it kind of oddly includes the Arboretum too.
Which is bizarre.
Yeah, but a lot of that's based on census tracts, and that's how the funding was sort of targeted. So we're kind of working in those those bounds. And so the concept here, and the other thing that we've also gotten some money from the Madison Community Foundation, the DNR Urban Forestry Grant Program. And about a year ago, we kind of took a risk and said, okay, there's this money coming up in the horizon, we need to get ready now. So we hired some additional people, mostly for outreach, and started to get organized with the idea that there's this opportunity out there that hopefully once it happens, we kind of need to be able to meet it. So I work with the Urban Tree Alliance. We also have a coordinator for this project. Her name is Becca. Then we've also hired somebody kind of work as an arborist assistant to help us in the field and do outreach and things. So the concept is to kind of combine those experiences I described in this larger area. So we're doing outreach to private property owners at the neighborhood level. To offer trees. So those same neighborhoods that Anna mentioned, people who live in those areas would also be eligible for trees. And then we're also looking for these kind of more organizational partners. And in this case, obviously Anna's on staff, you guys have more tree capacity than, like, for example, the school district, but there's still an opportunity to work with public properties here that fall within that boundary. And for us, that's great too, because we've kind of got a goal that we have tree planting we need to meet, and we frankly just need to start like finding places for trees. So we've partnered with Wisconsin Eco Latinos to help us translate our outreach materials, but also they've really been helpful for organizing projects. Christina Karyaval has been great for just contacting a school, for example, and taking the steps that go into like organizing those projects. We're working with Urban Triage, which is an organization that mostly represents African American interests on a variety of levels, but they have an environmental advocacy program. We're working with the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission, and so they do a lot of planning issues, but they've mostly been helping us with mapping. So a lot of what we're trying to do is create maps that give us information about where we should be working, where there's trees, where there's opportunities, but hopefully also to present that information for outreach purposes so we can show people what the trees situations are in these areas. And then the other group we're working with, which I think was really more directly related to the Fitchburg projects, are going to be Operation Fresh Start, which is a youth job training program. So we've been working with Operation Fresh Start for a number of years on tree maintenance. They do a lot of our tree watering in the summer and mulching and repairing trees. And this last spring, just started kind of involved in actually tree planting. So it's a little bit higher skill set than for example watering. We're trying to figure out kind of how that's going to work. So as I mentioned too, we've got this funding through the DNR. We basically have 3 years of funding to run this program, and so it's going to have a kind of planning piece through CARP-C where we're looking to have a real clear idea of geographically what's happening in this area of trees. It's going to have an outreach component where we've started attending events, community events that aren't necessarily tree related, to try to connect to people outside of the tree community. To some degree, we started planning our own events. We did a tree walk last weekend in the Burr Oaks neighborhood. So a big part of this isn't just tree planting and tree maintenance. It's really to try to connect with people who are interested in trees and maybe the next level of people who aren't as interested but could be interested. And so that's a big piece of what we're doing. And then there's also tree planting. So over the next 3 years, we have a really healthy budget to be planting trees and maintaining them. And so that's the other piece that I just wanted to talk about, because I know from a municipal perspective, that's always, or even any perspective, that's a big issue. Is once you plant the tree, what's the maintenance going to go into it? And for us, we have a little bit bigger budget that we've had, but really just having this 3-year time frame has like really changed what we can tell people, because our funding has pretty much been year in, year out. And so after a year, we're kind of like, well, we can kind of help, but we can't really be directly involved in a lot of these projects. So for example, in Fitchburg, we can provide trees, but then through Operation Fresh Start, be involved with watering, mulching. If a tree dies, we can remove it, we can replace it. So part of the strategy that Anna and I have been talking about is, trying to do a little bit heavier planting in 2026, 27, as far as total numbers, and then have that extra year to just ensure that the trees we planted are established, in that third year. So we can still plant some in 2028, but we want to have that full year to give the trees to establish, to get watered, and hopefully persist from there on out. So that's kind of the scope of what we're doing. I think there's a lot of great direct partnership opportunities with Fitchburg, with parks and public lands. One thing that would be a little bit new to us that I think probably we need to learn about is like potentially street tree planting. That's not something as an organization we've done too much with, but it's still, I think potentially something we could do. So that I think a direct partnership, but then also I think the other thing we can always use help with is kind of marketing these programs to private property owners too. So we'll be doing outreach, but if the city is in any way able to help us let residents in the neighborhoods know that these trees are available, that this program's available. The other big piece of this, I'll conclude on, and that's come out of a lot of our experience in these neighborhoods is private multifamily housing is, I think, going to be the real kind of crux of this for a variety of reasons. One, there's a lot of it as a land use within this area, a lot of rental properties. And so initially, we feel that there's a lot of extra value associated with that in the sense that there's more people living in the area, there's more benefit that can be had from trees and the canopy. But moving from that, we've also encountered just a lot more complexity with those projects. One, as far as tenant issues, tenant interests, ownership interests, which can be complex, even out of town owners, it's fairly common. And then landscape management companies, which often don't necessarily have trees as their highest priority. So we've had some success in that regard, but we know going into this that that's going to be kind of the hardest part. Working with a single family homeowner is a real direct conversation. That person can make a decision. They can let you know what they want. Then from there, we can just make the project happen. Same thing with schools. It's a little more complicated, but it's still kind of straightforward. When you get into these other scenarios, that's where, again, the 3-year time frame I think is going to be key, but then also we have now people who can just stay involved. It's a lot of calling, it's a lot of emailing, it's a lot of meeting people. So that's another piece where I just want to put that on the table. If there are people in this room or we know of kind of secondary contacts of people who own rental properties, that's a piece that I even before we get started, I know that's going to be one of the hardest pieces we deal with.
I will say we do have expertise in this committee on owning and managing rental properties. So I think there is some inroads we can make, or some, we do have a fair bit of experience working in that arena here within the folks on this committee. We also have the Healthy Neighborhoods Committee within the city of Fitchburg that I think would be interested in working on that as well. So I think we can kind of hopefully offer something, because you're right. I mean, there's at least one rental property that I'm thinking about that takes up 33 acres in this area. That's a lot of land.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the trees there are dead ash trees. So you would hope that there would be some potential partnership opportunities. I don't know, but I think that's something we could definitely pursue.
Sure. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I know the property you're talking about. It's like across from Leopold there in that whole that area. So yeah, that's kind of the scope of what we're looking to do over the next 3 years. And I don't know if there's any questions from that, but I could be happy to tell more if there's other things.
So in the multi-unit buildings, you have to first go to the owners? And get their
essentially.
permission,
Yeah,
right?
we've had a variety of experiences where a tenant will contact us, and then we say, well, we have to then find the person. So it's not necessarily like first, but ultimately you have to get to the owner.
But your first outreach is to the tenants usually?
Not necessarily, but that's,
It can be either way.
once you start, for example, like you'd say you put an article in a neighborhood association newsletter, anybody might read that, and they might not necessarily say, I'm a tenant, I'm not,
Right.
So they just may contact you, and then you just sort of go from there. The partnership we had with the CDA, the Community Development Authority of Madison, started that way. We were just advertising generally in the neighborhood. One of the people who lived in one of their apartments contacted us. That was my first experience on that property, and then from there it was like, well, who's the property manager? And then from there, property manager, well, who's the overall city agency? So it can go either way. We have, on occasion, been contacted by property owners who own multifamily, but again, that's pretty uncommon, at least at this point. Ideally, that will become more routine, but we haven't quite had a lot of experience with that.
So do you use like the variety of talking points around the benefits of having trees? I'm sure you must, to the manager or the
Yeah,
reducing
yeah, well,
utilities?
I think a lot of people, well, I shouldn't say a lot, I think people initially kind of intuitively get it or they kind of don't. We don't do a lot of like hard selling, you know, we kind of want people who want to work with us. And that's kind of the first step. And then from there, yeah, I mean, I think ideally people see the value. I mean, there's going to be no cost associated with this. And that's obviously a selling point, but that's frankly not enough in a lot of cases, you know, so it's, we probably will have to get a little bit more into like this sort of marketing and sort of selling it. But I will say, I mean, just for the amount of time we have, we typically just try to find people who want to work with us, like Anna and you all, and then like follow that path, you know. But we're starting to kind of get to the, like where those, you know, boundaries are.
If I can just jump in a little bit, I think the selling point often is us getting trees on the terrace of these neighborhoods. That's usually the first step. And then once we've got that and that proof of concept, you know, taken care of, because as you guys are aware, 2 years ago I think it was, we did plant quite a few trees in one of these neighborhoods, and the terrace is only 4 feet wide, so we couldn't put bald and burlap trees in there. We had to do bare root, and the conventional wisdom was, well, they'll get torn out, they'll get vandalized, this, that, the other thing, they won't survive. They all survived. So, I mean, we watered them all summer, obviously, but, you know, they didn't get vandalized, they didn't get torn out. The stakes did not disappear, they did not get hit by cars, and people actually really appreciated them, and I think that's kind of the first step, is the proof of concept. Well, you know, we can do this in the terrace. The multiplier effect is continue to do it in the parks, maybe on some private property, that sort of thing. So that might be the first in, and it often is to say, okay, on this little strip of terrace, we're gonna put trees in, and people see how fabulous that looks, and it really, I think, does, and they walk by those trees every day on the way to the bus or on the way to the school or whatever it happens to be, and that's kind of usually the kind of to get the ball rolling. And we've done that on Post Road. We did a little bit of that in Traceway. We did run into the issue of dead ash trees hanging over the terrace, which precluded us from planting a lot of Traceway. And we did do that on High Ridge Trail, where we did 24 or 5, whatever trees along High Ridge Trail along that whole kind of thin terrace, because there weren't any trees on the multifamily. Well, there were trees, they were all ash trees, and they got removed. So at any rate, so I think there's a lot of different ways to do it.
The timing for this is very good.
It actually is, because there's going to be, I mean, we've taken out all of our dead and dying ash trees in those neighborhoods, but they need to be replaced. We've tried to keep up with the replacement. We are not there yet. This will help us catch up on that replacement. And also, I think it'll help us kind of just do a canopy renovation situation, where instead of just kind of replacing ash trees, we're actually looking at, to your point, the big picture. What is the opportunity here? You know, how can we really, you know, make this actually really nice? So anyway, I think it's very exciting.
Yeah, I mean,
Very exciting.
I like that a lot, as far as like thinking about the street as kind of like an outreach component. I mean, obviously there's like real benefit with just planting the tree, but then using that on the next, on the other side of the property line as a way to show the idea. The other thing, just arboriculturally, is really attractive, is that once you usually go to the other side of the sidewalk, you have all the soil you typically want to plant in, you know. And so you're not in that 4-foot section anymore. You have like usually a yard, and then that's, as far as planting a tree, a really good scenario. So.
And you have a lot more options species-wise, among other things.
Yeah.
One thing I would just like to comment on, I just was really grateful to work with Jeremy, because I was a little bit heartbroken that our IRA grant didn't get funded, because we worked on that pretty hard, but we were very limited in what we could say we were going to do, just because of our partly our capacity, and also we just couldn't really, I knew we couldn't really check some other boxes in terms of working with different groups, because we just can't really, I can't really say like, oh, even though I would love to do it, I can't just say like, oh, the city's gonna do all this partnership stuff, like that's gotta go through council, and we didn't have enough time. That grant, the turnaround for that grant was actually pretty short, considering the projects they were looking for. I mean, I guess it was 3.5 months or whatever it was, but it was pretty, I mean, that's a pretty tight time frame to turn around a $500,000 project or whatever, if you're a municipality that has to really go through a lot of different committees and get lots of different sign-offs. So we weren't able to put together quite as compelling of a project as we like, but I think we can still get the work done through Urban Tree Alliance, which is the same, you know, it's like awesome.
Very exciting.
So it is very exciting. So it's kind of, it's a very uplifting turn of events in my mind. And from my perspective, what I've done, you know, I think we've laid the groundwork to do these kinds of things already. We've already, you know, the list of things we've done to get ready is pretty significant. we could use definitely some help with planting spaces, generally speaking, which sounds like that's something that we could do with Carp C. And, you know, I think what we would do is, I have talked to administration about this next week, and I put together a resolution that I shared with Jeremy just to kind of outline kind of just some broad strokes of what we do. They're going to want a little bit of a work plan. Basically what they're going to want is roles, responsibilities, and expectations. Kind of get that organized, and once we kind of get that, you know, sort of set up and then get a resolution through council, then I think we should be able to get going. But I would want a motion from this group that says, hey, let's move forward with getting the collaboration rolling. Okay. If that makes sense. And I don't mean to jump the gun here. I'm not trying to cut off discussion if folks have more questions or have more comments or anything at all.
That actually gets to the question I was going to ask, which is what the ask is for this committee, or what we can do, and a resolution or a voting in favor of it, I think makes perfect sense. I'm happy to propose that. But in addition, if there's anything that we should be thinking about, not necessarily just this meeting, but going forward, that would be helpful or benefit this, then we should keep that on our minds.
I think what my hope is that our January meeting, I'm hoping we can have a work plan for you guys to vote on. We can get the resolution moved up through the chain and then really have things set so we can get rolling for Arbor Day. And it'd be great to do a really nice Arbor Day in Hugo Jamestown, which is one of the parks we talked about. We haven't been working up there since they got their new shelter 5 years ago. We did pretty significant tree planting at that time, which is great. Since then, we've taken out all the ash trees. We've replaced some of them, not all of them, but the park has changed in that the fence for the ball diamond has changed. There's now community gardens in there. The water has changed. It's just been a little bit of a different tone in that park, and it would be nice to kind of, you know, bring the tree canopy up to speed with what's happening there. So at any rate, long story longer, I think, you know, if we can kind of get this rolling by that January meeting, we'd really be able to hit the ground running, and by April have an Arbor Day project and some other projects going for 2026 or 25. Sorry, and then thinking about 26. Anyway,
Multiple years.
Multiple years. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. You read my mind. You know, because this is a multi-year project. I don't know. Is that kind of?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think I agree that we can kind of get on the same page of one, just like the park, but then start working out the details as how many trees and where. I understand that takes a little bit of time, but and then I think to the degree that we can kind of do that across the project area, that doesn't have to be all at once. It can be a little bit of evolving, but that's kind of like some of the direction we'd be looking for, and that just makes it easier for us to start planning this stuff. And you know, we have to coordinate, for example, Operation Fresh Start and the trees and the dates and all that, you know, that kind of thing. So if we have the places sorted out, that is really the big piece. And then once that's in place, all the other pieces kind of fall in pretty quickly.
So who does the planting?
Well, it'll be a combination. I think in this case, we'd be working with Operation Fresh Start, but
So they would plant.
Yeah, I'd be on site, or somebody from the Urban Tree Alliance would be on site, and so they'd be involved with the planting. What's nice for that is they have a lot of their own equipment, so that
A lot of what?
a lot of their own equipment.
Oh, okay.
So that kind of moves my job away from being a
Mowing.
field arborist to being more of a coordinator, which I like. And then
That is nice.
and then they have the experience too of doing the work, which is good. And but yeah, it could also be, depending on the scenarios, it could just be directly the Urban Tree Alliance doing it if there's like smaller little projects here and there. I think a little bit it worked out, but that labor through their Operation Fresh Start, I think it'll be a big piece of the planting.
And then we'll probably have some community volunteers as well through our Healthy Neighborhoods Committee, among others. And I'm sure an alder will want to come out, and potentially other city leaders will want to come out and plant some trees, which is awesome.
So I've been wondering about alders, kind of informing them or getting their input on, they do, it kind of depends, but I know sometimes they do door to door when they do have elections, going through their communities, and they may sort of notice or have spots too that they're like, if you're going to be including some, homeowners versus just terraces, the terraces, but they might also have input on people or areas that they're like, hey, I know this area would be good. I do have some connections or know some people, or as I knock a door, this would be a good offer to help me connect with some voters too, so they might be somebody to pull in to get interest on, you know, who might want a tree.
Yeah, and the other thing we always kind of look at too are people in the neighborhood who have a particular interest that could help us spread the word too. So whether it's a neighborhood association or however it might work. So those kinds of connections are helpful. The way we've typically found most successful to advertise this in the private is to do door hangers, or like you're describing. We would also be looking for like newsletter opportunities at the neighborhood level. We may kind of do some postcard mailers also, depending on just sort of how things work out. But that's typically how we advertise.
Just to those neighborhoods and areas you were talking about?
Yeah, it'd be targeted. In some of these maps we have from CARP-C, we can almost do it property by property. I mean, we know there's properties in this area that don't have tree planting potential, and we can take those, addresses off the list and really just say who's got space for trees and mail it to them directly, just for the sake of saving some costs and that type of thing.
Because once you go out there, you see like, oh, you know, there's this easement, that utility, whatever. I mean, it takes a lot of tree planting spaces get taken out for not just impervious surface purposes, but also just conflicts with signs and all kinds of different utilities that are out there. So it is, I'm grateful that we're working in these neighborhoods, but they are tough from a conflict perspective because the terraces are fairly small, the parks aren't that big either, and there's a lot packed in there from a lot of different perspectives.
So I just want to clarify, so we do need a formal resolution? Is that
I think
in
we
order
will.
for the city to make the commitment for staff that's involved? Is that
Well, I'm talking to administration next week, so I'm not really
Okay.
sure what's gonna be
All right,
required. I know I'm gonna have to do something.
right, okay.
So and I'm not that awesome at resolutions as
We're
we
still
have
trying to
learned.
figure out when we need resolutions and when we don't.
So I just drafted one quick just to say like, hey, this is what I put
Okay.
together. If this is acceptable, fine. If they want something different, I don't know what they're gonna say.
Okay.
But this is, I mean, I can't really just be like, oh yeah, we're gonna jump on board with this project. I mean, I could say that for Arbor Day and Hugo Jamestown, but for the whole bigger picture, I think to do it justice, we really need
Right.
coordination more than just me saying yes.
Yeah, and I would think if we do need the resolution, that just getting that approved by the mayor would make most sense rather than having two alders for a situation like this.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
pretty straightforward.
I would hope, yeah. So we'll see what, I drafted the resolution kind of as a talking piece just to say, and I put in there just, hey, this is just so they know, this is the grant. I outlined, hey, this is the grant that's funded this. These are the things we've been doing. This is the project, you know, hey, let's do it together kind of thing. So we'll see what comes about. But at any rate, that's kind of, but I think they're gonna ask what this group had to say, and I think the first thing is kind of getting your take on it and
Then
what you're.
to make a motion to move ahead with it.
Yeah, or not. I mean, it's kind of up to you. I would suggest you do, but it's not, I'm not a voting member, so.
All right, somebody want to make a motion?
I don't know exactly how to word it. I'll
I think it's
move
just-
we support the partnership with the Urban Tree Alliance going forward. Does that work?
I think that's awesome.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion is approved that we recommend moving ahead with the grant that we received and working collaboratively with
We did receive it, they received it.
Yeah.
the grant. Collaboration with the grant.
Yeah, it's basically like us piggybacking on their project to get our project
Okay,
kind of going,
got it.
or continuing, I guess, because we've been trying to do this, it's just we really haven't had the horsepower, so to speak, to really make a huge impact from a lot of different perspectives. Anyway, so. All right, well, thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah, thank you very much this is a very cool project.
Right? Yeah, it is. So what we'll do is I will be in touch with you probably next week if that's okay, and we can really start to get things hammered out and start getting things moved forward and look forward to, you know, future work with all kinds of different partners. I did talk to the Healthy Neighborhoods staff coordinator person, and she's relatively new in her job, so she's kind of just getting to know things, but I think she's very interested. So and I passed everything along to her, so we'll just keep moving forward the best we can.
Yeah, great. It sounds like kind of focusing towards Arbor Day makes a lot of sense, and we've got time to do that. And then the other thing I'll mention is that as we've been having these kinds of meetings and talking with people, we've been assembling kind of like a project partner list so we can keep you up to date with what's going on with the project. mostly just like with emails and that type of thing. But then if there are events and things that we can send to you all as they get organized. And so I guess what I'm saying is I would want to encourage you to get back in touch with me if there's anything I've mentioned that you want to talk about, or two, we'll also be getting back in touch with you, mostly through Anna, I think would be the most, probably the way to kind of delegate
most
that.
direct,
And then she can disseminate the information, but we've already kind of started that process of, you know, it's not necessarily a newsletter, but like, you know, kind of an internal updates with what's going on today. So, yeah, just don't want to have like this resolution be the end of it for you all. If there's any ways to kind of keep you all involved, that's really what we're looking to do through this project too.
All right. Well, very uplifting.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity to work with.
Yeah, likewise, thanks for having me.
And you know, I don't think we'll have any big issues moving forward, and I'm really looking forward to, you know, getting more trees in these neighborhoods, because it's, like I said, it's been on the agenda for a long time. We just haven't been able to really dig into it as much as we'd like, but we have laid the groundwork to really make an impact. So we're looking forward to future tree planting.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you for the unanimous support, appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming. We really appreciate you coming in person and
Good.
talking to us.
Good.
And you got your brownies?
I did, I already
Okay, that's the most important thing, right?
Right.
Okay.
I'm gonna head out, but nice
Yeah.
to meet you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next agenda item is the McGaw Park Resolution, R1718, and that's been on our agenda several times consecutively, and then we will want to make a motion to move ahead with the new resolution. We will want to put that on the table, but we just wanted to update you a little bit about what's happened between last meeting and tonight. So Anna has done an incredibly wonderful job of providing tours of this area that needs to be restored and cleaned out in McGaw Park. And we've done that with Nicole, our new alder to the committee, and also a second time with Alder Danzler, because this will be something that we would want two of our alders to sponsor, to write with Anna, the resolution to write with Anna for the council. So in the process of meeting and discussing all of this, we came up with an idea that because the tour is so valuable in demonstrating the impact of the invasives on the trees we want to preserve. So some of the oak trees are dying. The healthy trees we want to preserve can't grow in that area because of lack of sunlight and because of the low airflow. But it's so powerful to actually see it that we wanted to videotape it so that people can use that as a resource. So do you want to follow up with that part?
Sure, yes. So thank you, Linda. Yes, we've been out there giving alders and city administration folks tours of the area just to get their eyes on it, because it really, when you see it, you understand much better what we're talking about.
Right, so Adam Sayre was there, who was the deputy administrator for the city.
And I was really grateful that he came out. That was really important. So, and basically what we have always discovered is you never have enough time, right? Like you're touring through there and you're like, oh, it's already been an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it's been. We need to get on to our next thing. You never have enough time to really go through everything. So what I'm going to do is and FACTv is so nice to help us with this. I'm so grateful. They are going to, next Tuesday, which looks like it's going to be a beautiful day if the weather holds, we're going to go out there in the morning and we're going to do a couple of different kinds of videos. So the sort of meat and potatoes of it's going to be kind of a shorter video hitting on the main highlights, like, basically this area is invaded with invasive shrubs, primarily honeysuckle, also buckthorn, also black locust. It's causing this, that, the other problem, lack of airflow, lack of sunlight, this sort of thing. There's no regeneration of the forest here. The oak trees are dying, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just kind of hitting on those big picture topics, just so folks can see for themselves in a short, 5, 10, whatever it happens to be, video clip of, if they want to get an idea, there it is. And it's kind of just overview, educational, not necessarily specific to this project. However, we also are going to go through each stand. Hey, stand 1, this is what's happened, this is what's here, this is why. Stand 2, same thing, black locust, all over the place. What do we do? What are the implications of that? Stand 3, same thing. We have neighbors, we could do a buffer, blah, blah, blah. Stand 4, I'm not sure what to say about stand 4 because it's kind of an odd shape, but whatever. Anyway, we'll figure that out. And then stand 5 is SC Johnson. So anyways, we're gonna go into depth of each stand as well. If people are interested, they can watch that, but you don't have to, it isn't gonna be a slog. You don't have to watch the whole thing. Some people will, but you don't have to watch the whole thing to get the gist. We're gonna have a shorter video situation as well. So, and I'm super grateful that FACTv is willing to go out there and film and willing to do all the editing work and all that sort of stuff, which is awesome. So so after next week, hopefully, we'll at least have the raw footage. I'm sure it'll take them a while to get it all together, which is totally fine. And I think the idea being 2025 is probably going to be our get the political ducks in a row year and get, budgets organized, grants written, all that kind of stuff. And then, get the barriers removed so that in 26 we can really start working in earnest. I don't foresee us being able to do a whole lot in 25.
But getting the resolution passed
Right.
is the big.
That's
We can't do anything until that.
Pardon?
We
Yeah.
can't do anything until the
Right.
resolution
We
is
cannot
passed,
do
so.
anything until
And-
that happens, so.
And it's time, right?
So I'm
I
hoping
mean,
that by January, that will be done and presented to council.
right, because once that's done, then we can, because right now I can't even really write any grants to do anything in there because
Right.
we can't, I mean.
And it can't be part of the budgeting process because
Right.
Exactly.
So both Donald and Nicole are very supportive and would co-sponsor the resolution, so. And it sounds like administrator's office is supportive, the mayor is supportive, so I feel like we're ready to move.
And it's Donald and Jay that are the two alders who are the alders that are responsible for that area.
Yeah, I haven't gotten a hold of Jay yet, but I will, just to inform him, to let him know what's
I
going on.
don't think it's necessary to get them to be the initial people. I'm just in terms of who's going to hear the most negative things about it.
Right.
It's the two of them, so
No, that's a
I
good
would
one.
think.
And on that note, just to kind of clarify a little bit, I do need to kind of fix, I don't want to say fix, but just sort of, I think, we need to get the resolution changed, obviously, but I do also need to kind of readjust the plan. It has a very aggressive time frame, and which when it was passed, I thought, or when it was first brought forward, I was like, maybe we can do this, but there really isn't a way that I think we can get, for example, all the black locusts taken care of in 2 years. That's just too aggressive. So I need to relook at the timeframes in that plan. I also would like to add the option of potentially doing another stand, so to speak, or another management area that is, let's say 10 or 15 or 20, whatever feet between the private property and the park, because it's full of hazard trees and it's full of invasive shrubs. Well, we want to clear the invasive shrubs, we want to clear the hazard trees. They also want the privacy, so it'd be nice if we used that kind of buffer area, we call it a buffer area, and we planted native stuff in there that offered a bit of a buffer but wasn't invasive, that we could actually manage and wasn't going to fall over onto their property. And that's something we really should be doing throughout the city. McGaw is not a unique spot, right? We've got honeysuckle growing in all of our woodlots. We have hazard trees hanging over.
I was just shocked to see what that looks like. And I think for people who aren't informed, and I had not been informed, I didn't even realize, the canopy of those honeysuckles are tower above everything else in that area. And the canopy themselves, if you from a distance, they look nice, but they are killing everything below it. And that, along with the other invasives, are choking everything out.
Yeah.
So I think people just often don't know what they're viewing.
You're 100% right. And so, but this is something we could do throughout the city. So it isn't just a McGaw thing. It's a city woodlot management situation. And I think it's something we could, if we applied it across the board, it's a little, I think it's just, I don't want to say more transparent, but just like then people hopefully won't feel quite so picked on. Because I think that was part of the issue, is that people felt very targeted or singled out or whatever. But I think that the idea is, and I think this is the way to kind of handle it, is we should be doing this across the city, not just in McGaw Park. We also should be doing this in the Dolly Conservancy, potentially Mickelson Woods, potentially, Dolly comes to mind for sure, but there's other woodlots that we aren't really managing, and we have these same problems throughout, and we have the same issue of privacy throughout. So it's like, well, if we can kind of address it in a similar fashion, I mean, obviously the implementation is going to be somewhat nuanced, but if we say, okay, we create this buffer, if it's 10 feet, if it's 15, I don't exactly know what that looks like. I have to do a little bit more careful measurement, where we take everything out, basically, all the invasive stuff, all of the hazard trees, because what happens is a lot of this invasive stuff will create black cherry, black locust, sometimes walnuts to kind of grow towards the sun, and they're growing over someone's property, and then they kind of half fall apart and they're hanging there, and it's not an awesome situation. And then people are like, well, your tree's gonna come down on my fence. Well, great, and it is. So then we're kind of like trying to just manage this by a tree basis, and it really doesn't, it's just not very effective. So I think if we had kind of I don't want to say policy, because that might be too strong of a word, but just a management strategy for how we're managing this sort of area between private property and our public property in a way that everyone can live with, I think that we could apply across the city.
So it would be a bit of prioritizing that area too.
We would.
And then using some fast-growing, maybe barriers, trees, shrubs.
Yep, and we've set up different examples of this throughout the city, right? We this fall planting finished yesterday, which is awesome, but we planted that strip between the McGaw driveway and the path, right? That's got native shrubs in it now, which is awesome. We did a bunch of native shrubs in Chicory Meadows. So we've got different examples of what this looks like now, and we've also, I think, which I think is awesome, like Oak Meadow, an awesome example of this used to be a honeysuckle disaster, and now it's actually really nice. And you don't go in there and get eaten by mosquitoes. You actually can enjoy birds and butterflies and bees and everything else, or insects, however you like. It's actually kind of a pleasant place to be instead of a mosquito, wild parsnip, paradise. So at any rate, long story longer, I think we can kind of just, let folks know, like, hey, we can manage this in a way that's good for our trees and also good for our people, and people can get in there and actually enjoy this. And we're really, I think, doing things that benefit everyone. And there's this huge stormwater concern, which I find interesting because honeysuckle is not deep-rooted. It does not promote infiltration of stormwater, but everything we want to put in there does. So it's like it actually will help any stormwater issue if we can get deep-rooted things.
So what you're saying is people are worried about the water impact, the excessive water impact when you remove it.
Right.
But actually what's in there does not improve the stormwater
Not at all.
situation.
Correct.
Right, and you see that across the city. Oak Meadow is a perfect example. So
Where's Oak Meadows?
it's just right over here. It's a beautiful little park now. It was kind of crummy, but the neighbors have really worked really hard to make it nice, and it's just basically straight across Fish Hatchery Road from here, and it's a lovely little path. It's a little park that's got a path through it, and it's kind of a steep hillside on either side, and we've been working for the last 4 or 5 years to really take out the invasives and get a nice variety of native stuff established in there, and it actually looks really good.
Just come over, it's our house backs up to one of two sides.
So,
You can come visit.
just to clarify, I think from my perspective, and maybe I'm wrong, but we want the resolution, kind of undoing resolution R/R-17-18 as the primary thing that needs to be done. But then you're also discussing, and I think maybe this is not exactly what you said, but more or less a broader whole city woodlot management plan, outline, whatever you want to call strategy that we could point people to say, this isn't just McGaw, it's not just this place, this is how we're planning to do it everywhere. How difficult is it in your mind to make a overarching strategy, because it strikes me that you understand what you want to do, and I'm just not sure how much of a lift it is to get to the point of because I think it'd be really helpful for people to point to a part on the website or whatever where it's like, this is what our guidelines are, and we're gonna apply them everywhere, and then we take out the one exception from McGaw.
I think we could do it. I don't think, that's a really good point. Easy for me to say now, but it doesn't seem like it would be that heavy of a lift, partly because, like, for example, both in McGaw and in Dolly, we've done the survey work, right? So we know what's there, we know what we need to do, and so it would be an issue, and I'd have to work with our GIS person, who's awesome, but very busy, so it would be, I just have to get on his calendar to kind of outline some, what does this look like on the ground? Like, what does 15 feet look like? What does 20 feet look like? How much do we really, kind of getting that work done? And then just so people have a sense of what we're talking about. And we would be, to your point, we would be going in there and taking trees out, partly because they're hazardous. And the thing is, the people who live along these woodlots, they often are calling us to their, which is not bad, like, hey, you've got a tree that's coming down from your area, into my pool, into my fence, into my yard, whatever, and it's really our responsibility to deal with that, and so I think it's something that we really should be doing. I think you bring up a good point that there is some effort there. I think we can do that, but that's going to be the 25 work, I think, and it probably wouldn't get implemented until 26.
So,
which is fine.
but that would not be necessarily this resolution. This resolution would be specific to McGaw and hopefully would be the first example of what we can do and then move on to make it a general policy. Is that what you're thinking? Or do you think that has to be, I was just thinking that might hold it up if we,
you bring up a good point. I truly don't know.
Because I think it's a really good rationale. I mean, this could be a precedent.
I think we don't, this is my opinion, not necessarily ironclad, but I think the McGaw Park resolution, the new thing we should be doing is just undoing that restriction and not necessarily replacing it with a new comprehensive plan, which I understand might be kind of unpopular for some people because they'll say, why, you're just undoing this and leaving us with nothing. But then with the replacement being overall plan in the future, that's just gonna go for everything. And I don't think we wanna muddy the water by trying to make this resolution say, actually, this other plan, because that seems trickier in my mind.
Does the original plan, so it's a natural resources management plan for the park, does that require, would that prevent you from doing what you think is the best strategy for McGaw?
Not necessarily.
Without writing it into a resolution?
Not necessarily. I mean, I would say that, I would like to update the plan. How those two things are related, I have a feeling that others are gonna wanna see that updated plan before they sign off on a resolution, which is fine. And it wouldn't take that much to update the plan. I mean, so I guess, I think you bring up good points. I'm not 100% sure how the powers that be are gonna wanna handle it. And that's what we need to work out in 25.
So I think that this committee, we want the city to be able to go ahead and complete the natural resources management plan.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean it shouldn't be updated, but we just want the process to continue.
And it to be possible.
Right. And to make this step to remove the barrier as smooth as possible, I think. I mean, is that what I'm hearing people?
Yeah, I think with those updates to the plan, because it sounds to me like, and I haven't looked at the McGaw Park Master Plan, what I'm concerned about with just removing some of the restrictions and having that overall plan is if there's these unrealistic timelines or things that have fallen out of favor. I don't want to have to come back in 2 years and say, well, now we have to undo the resolution because, we've got this requirement to do the plan that isn't really the plan anymore, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense.
I think that if we had a broader guideline of we don't want to pursue the McGaw Park Master Plan anymore, we want to pursue the Fitchburg Forestry Plan, which could be broader, more generalized towards giving discretion, because I think your job is very hard to do black and white by the letter of what we decided now. Because in 2 years when you get the budget, there might be a different plan than what is specific to this now. And in another 3 years from then, there might be another thing that, we don't know what we don't know for the future. So I think just whoever ends up drafting this resolution and however we want to craft it, we want to be careful to leave a lot of room for decision-making on city staff rather than on individual residents who may or may not understand what the best course of action is. Because I also wouldn't understand the best course of action. I would defer to the experts. So.
I would defer to the experts. Okay.
No, that makes sense.
What's tricky with that is I don't exactly know what that means we recommend to the alders who need to support the resolution.
Well, and I think that can be worked out with once we get the. I think we have a yellow light.
Yeah.
It feels like it's turning red, but once, yeah. So the only person who didn't weigh in was Scott, and I did get a hold of him yesterday, but he said he was waiting to hear back from Adam, so even, I don't know. Anyway, so even though
we
Adam
vote right
told us
now.
that Chad was fine with it, so I don't know. Go
Sorry,
ahead.
I don't mean to just keep on talking over everyone. I feel like I'm talking too much. If we vote now to recommend a referral to staff to write the resolution, is that about what we're, and then that leaves the flexibility, the alders can say, yes, we think we support this and we bring it to council, or?
My understanding is that somebody in charge on staff has to ask Anna to write it.
Mhm.
We have 2 alders who are very interested in writing it with Anna and taking it to council. So we already have that. So I'm thinking that we make a resolution that we would recommend that a resolution be prepared for council that would allow the city to continue their work in McGaw Park and to continue the Natural Resources Management Plan. And that plan, so I think that's all we're asking, is that, and then just an aside, is that plan can be changed by the city at any point.
And that's normal course of business. You know, I mean, I mean, in the implementation of plans, we adjust them all the time. Like we realize like, oh, well, this is a little bit more difficult than we thought. We need to change course, or something doesn't quite work out, or, you know, a contractor doesn't do quite what they want to do, and then we have to kind of like, you know, get a bunch of money from them to then hire somebody else to redo it or whatever, as we've experienced.
Right.
So,
and in doing so, I would guess also there could be some logic in doing that buffer area because this is so entrenched with invasives that it's not going to look like neighbors want it for a while, probably. And so maybe
Probably not.
but that's a separate. That could be a separate.
but if you look at the triangle, I mean, it looks pretty good, and it's like you can't see through it.
Right.
But it isn't honeysuckle.
Right.
I mean, it's a different situation.
Right.
But and those oak trees they're growing. I mean, anyway.
All right.
You go there, you see it. But
So that's what I'm thinking, that we recommend that a resolution be prepared for council. I mean, I don't know another way of saying it. That allows the city to move ahead, that would, we should specify that would make the resolution R-1718 null and will allow the city to move ahead with the natural resource management plan at McGaw Park. Is that?
okay. So recommend a resolution be prepared that nullifies R-1718.
Yep.
Period, or is there more?
No, that's all there is. I probably have to include the year it was done. I mean, because I think that's how it's.
It was done in.
It's
2018.
Yeah, 2018. January 2018, right. Because then I'll be able to locate it in the documents.
Okay, so the motion is, just so I get it right.
Yep.
So recommend a resolution be prepared that nullifies R-17-18 that was passed in January of 2018.
I make that motion.
And maybe we should say, and that allows the city to continue with the natural resources management plan for McGaw Park.
I think we get there with just nullifying the last
Okay.
one, and then
Okay,
when we actually work on the resolution, it'll.
because I remember what Valerie said, we have to write a new resolution.
Yeah,
But does that suffice?
I think the,
Recommend a resolution be prepared.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
guess
trying to
so.
put words in
Yeah,
anyone's
so I
mouth.
guess she meant you just can't go to council and say, we recommend you nullify this, but you have to write a resolution to
Yeah.
nullify it. Okay, all right,
which is what I was hoping we could do, because I thought that'd be cleaner, but.
right,
Okay, so Craig Rapp makes the motion, we have Terrell second.
okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, unanimously passes.
All right, well, we'll see what happens, and this will come up on Wednesday too, I believe. We have a meeting with administration, and I'll let them know kind of how this went, and we'll kind of
Good.
keep moving forward, so we'll see what
Good.
happens.
Very exciting. I want to add that some of the information you gave about that land is so, also just so exciting is that it hasn't been treated by the big agricultural chemicals. And so there's a seed bank in there, which I love the way you describe that. So it's,
and that's significant.
oh
You know,
yeah.
I mean, the potential there is huge. And it was purchased for a park. It wasn't purchased, I mean, I don't need to get into all this, but
So
it wasn't.
Anna brought up city documents that go back to the 1800s, where you can see what trees are growing there. So you can predict what will grow best there.
But I'm going back to Macaw, which is the, which area, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 is it that's the problematic area?
Well, the ones, we cannot work in 2, 3, or 4.
Because they're backing up to those.
That's a lot. Oh, okay.
It was 39% of the original McGaw Park property.
Yeah, so it's
So it was a
significant.
huge area.
I have a minor comment. I thought that was really interesting what you said about mosquitoes and the runoff. And I think that a lot of people would find that persuasive because people hate mosquitoes.
And
So-
ticks as well.
And
Yeah, and
and
ticks.
ticks.
Mhm.
So if you could put that into any information materials you're doing, maybe the videotape you're doing, or if you have written things, like here's the advantages of the work we're doing, I would recommend putting points like that in, because that'll resonate with people.
Right, and you know, the ecosystem services can't be argued with. I mean, this year, if you went to, you know, any of our prairies that we've been working on, well, we do have, you know, I mean, like Harlan Hills, that's a complete prairie reconstruction because that was a rat breeding facility. If you went there anytime when it was really wet, it was, I mean, the lower parts were wet, but I mean, those plants moved that water through, and there, even though there was some standing water, you did not get nailed by mosquitoes. And your dogs don't get ticks as much there as they would like in McGaw because we've got the structure of the environment and also just all of the other insects there that prey on those things. You don't, it's a more diverse environment.
So the thicket that's been created with all these overgrowth of invasives really has disrupted the ecosystem. So animals, birds, and insects.
Anyway, okay, thank you. I think it feels good to be moving forward on this. I think, you know, in the last time we went in there, we had some interaction with neighbors, but it wasn't that crazy.
I'm excited to see this video because I think that might really help even some people in the neighborhood.
I think
And then maybe there will, I mean, it's been 6 years since the resolution. There might not be the same,
Well, the neighborhood's changed a lot.
yeah, so.
I mean, to be honest, the neighborhood has changed a lot in the last 6 years. So, it will be interesting.
Homeowners?
New homeowners and also new development. I mean, now there's the Adams, the new homes.
right
There's-
across the
Yeah, I mean, there's
especially,
Faggy
right.
Fields is there, the Avalon is there. And those two, well, I guess the Avalon was there when we first started, but it was just being built, it was just opening. And now there's been people living over there for quite a while. And Faggy Fields is brand new. And then there's also Highland Reserve, and there's quite a few new developments right in that area. So, at any rate, well, thank you. We'll keep working forward. I'll keep doing everything that I can do, and we'll, and I do salute everyone here who supports, from collecting seed to everything else, because it really does, and I truly do mean this, it really does make a huge impact when we have areas to point to. Hey, what we're talking about is similar to what happened in Oak Meadow, Harlan Hills, we're here in City Hall, whatever. And so I really thank everyone here who has really helped with seed collecting and helping those efforts, because we really have done an awful lot with very little city budget in terms of restoration, and it's been pretty impressive, and that really, I think, helps get the ball rolling.
Right.
So
it
thank you
is.
for all those efforts.
Ramaki Pond is so easy access, but there's so many beautiful areas.
Yeah.
And McGaw, but other areas too, where you've done prairie grasses,
Yeah.
it's really amazing. So I hope people understand what they see when they see that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easier when it's in bloom and you see bees around it. Sometimes later in the year, I don't know if people realize that those are still native plants, and they're very desirable.
Yeah.
And they really add to our ecosystem
Yeah.
in a positive way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it takes tremendous amount of work to make it that way.
Right, yeah, and then once we get it though, it's like you burn it and you're good, which is kind of what we have at Dolly Conservancy. And Craig's got to go get kids.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Always good to see you. All right.
All right, the next item on the agenda is the Outreach and Education News article. Sue, you're on.
That's spectacular, Sue.
This is awesome, yeah. New project.
Oh, why is it? Okay.
Do you mind?
Do I mind what?
Oh, Sue, go ahead. Describe what you're doing.
Well, it's what we decided. You and me and Craig decided that we thought we should have quarterly articles about what's happening with trees in the fall and what's happening in winter, blah, blah. And Anna and I met. I wrote something and it's out to the Star, and the Star guy said he's a tree person, so
Yay.
yeah, so
He's a what?
he said he's a tree person.
I'd
So-
like our winter one to be cutting and treating invasive shrubs.
I'm sorry, what?
I'd like our winter one to be cutting and treating invasive shrubs, if that's okay.
Mhm.
Identifying invasive shrubs, cutting and treating, that whole thing.
The topic for the next one.
Okay, okay, I don't know.
That's fine. I just suggested, if it works, fine, if it doesn't, fine. Anyway, I don't mean to, I don't mean to jump the gun.
I'm good, but I thought we had a plan,
Okay, you tell us the plan, I'm jumping the gun, sorry.
but we should talk more maybe.
Okay.
I think you're just talking about timing, because we thought we did them quarterly, right?
Yes,
So
And about
The
trees.
next one would be.
about trees. What happens to trees in the fall? What happens to trees in the winter? What should you do with any trees that you have?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe the winter one could be what you said, there's not much happening because everything's dormant.
Yep.
That's it, yeah.
Perfect.
So, well, we can talk more.
We'll
Yep.
talk more. Okay. We'll see if that guy prints it. I think he will.
You will.
Did he
And
have
then
any questions on the content or want any more detail or anything?
it's done.
It's
But
done.
suggestions for the future.
I was just asking for the person who received it, if they had any questions.
Yeah, I don't know. I just sent it and I told him if he needed more to let me know. So,
So both the Fitchburg Star
and
and also the Green
Green
News
newsletter.
Blast.
yeah.
Which is an email that's sent out from our city website and from our conservation staff member, Phil Groovy.
Yeah, so we should, yeah,
Yes, you got it.
we should talk in late December, early January, maybe.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Yeah, that
And
sounds
maybe if, there's nothing doing, we could write about what you said
Or
instead.
ordering trees, how to figure out, if you're thinking, because you order your trees in January, February, potentially. I mean, there's a lot we can talk about, so
Okay,
we'll get it figured.
okay.
All right. I read your article too, thank you, it's
Yes.
really great.
Yeah, thank you for doing that, Sue.
Yes.
It was fun.
I appreciate you doing it.
It wasn't, he said I could have 800 words, but I couldn't write 800 words. I got about 600, and I didn't have any more to say, so we'll see what he does.
No, it was good because
Yeah.
you got the essence of it done. That's why it was really good.
Well, thank you.
Easy to read.
I had, and Anna gave me some articles about salt damage and,
Which
what's
is
the other?
excellent to know.
Winter burn.
Yeah, so good to know.
Right.
And I didn't wanna say homeowners and property owners, cause just in case somebody's not a property owner, but they're a tenant and they might wanna take care of their
good.
trees, so I tried not to put that in.
Yeah, I thought that was good.
Yeah, I really do think a lot of it is about educating and familiarizing people with trees, what they need, what they give, and.
Yeah, and I learned a lot too, just I didn't know what photosynthetics were before, and now I do,
Nice, nice.
so.
Well, and I think one thing, I really appreciate the effort here, and so next week I'm doing the McGaw videos, which, are somewhat related. I'm really hoping next year, if we can work this out with the Urban Tree Alliance, we can do some vignette videos like we did for McGaw last year. We did, the FACTv did, that I thought were very, very, I thought they were very insightful and short, and people seem to get a lot out of it, so. So anyway, so hopefully this is kind of we'll get the ball rolling. So thank you for getting it going.
All right. Next item is report from the department.
All right, so I gave you guys the written report. Since I gave that to you, fall planting is done. We finished yesterday, so our fall planting was mostly in parks. That's done, and the other big thing that's kind of going on, I don't know, it's not that big of a deal, but we're just kind of looking at what we're planting next year, and it's a lot. So we're getting ARPA money to replace ash trees. That's going to be about 450 trees on top of everything else. So we're really going to be.
And where is that money from?
It's from ARPA TID. So ARPA was the COVID money and TID was the TID closure money. So I'm not really sure exactly how it all shook out, but we did ask for money to replace ash trees, and that's coming through next year. And I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So I've been working on. So that means a lot of ash inspection work and taking out anything that's questionable. So we've been kind of doing that, which we do this time of year anyway, but we're kind of accelerating it a little bit. But anyway, so that's really working hard on ash management is ongoing as well right now. So anyway, that's in anticipation of doing a big planting next year. So
It's exciting. I see
it is exciting.
The Cambridge Tree Project.
That was great. Yeah, and there's a lot of trees that they plant that I would like to try. So we'll see. We'll see if we can figure that out.
Are they typical selections, or are they newer ones based on climate change?
They would be new ones based on climate change. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. I don't know. I got a lot of good ideas though. It was good. It was really, it was very informative.
That's an exciting project.
It is. Absolutely it is.
All right. Any questions? All right. Announcements?
We need to figure out our meeting schedule for next year. So once the budget's approved and we know we can have our meetings,
okay,
which shouldn't be an issue, but you just never know. Once that happens, which will be in the next month or so, once we get that final budget through and we know how many meetings we're gonna have, which is usually, 6? If I'm not mistaken, 6?
8 to 8.
Is it 8?
We have 8.
Okay,
6
but
to 8.
For a while it was 6,
And
but
now
now
it's
it's 8 again.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. Okay, so when I should know this. Anyway, I get so busy I kind of lose track of details. But at any rate, so once we kind of have that number set, which is 8, then I will just email you guys, hey, this is the second Thursday, 4 o'clock.
I think we start in January too.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'll get.
So write that in your calendars.
Yeah, and so I'll get it out to you in November, so you know. So you've got, as soon as we get the budget, I can then get that scheduled. I'll reserve this room. I'll get it in FACTv. I'll put it in the meeting software so everyone knows what we're doing. And then again, we do have flexibility. For example, we ended up changing some of our meetings around because of a variety of things.
Right.
So we'll have to,
Yeah, I'm so hoping that the McGraw resolution can get to common council, because that's where it would go first, right? I think.
The consent agenda and then out and then back, yeah.
Okay, by January, that's what I'm hoping, because we shouldn't have to see it then, I don't think, before then. And then the common council, well, who knows?
Yeah, so we'll see what administration says and kind of go from there.
Right. Okay, great. All right, anything else? Okay, I think we're ready for a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
A second?
All in favor, say aye. Aye. So moved. Meeting is adjourned at 5:15. Thank you all very much.
Very quick.